Welcome back. Now, this week, more evidence emerged of terrorists using chemical weapons in Aleppo. Correspondents from Sputnik's Arabic news agency visited an alleged factory used by the militants. Well, here's video taken by the journalists inside the building, and as you can see, the floor is covered with purple stains that are presumably left by chemicals. Various canisters, packages and chemistry equipment are scattered around the building too. Syrian military officials say that chemicals were added here to the rebels' missiles and rockets and were then used on government forces as well as civilian areas of Aleppo. We discussed the issue with former Pentagon official Michael Malouf, who believes that more chemicals could be found.
There was actually plants of not only mustard gas but also sarin. They may have many other hidden depots of these chemicals, just like the ones that were just discovered in East Aleppo. So I wouldn't doubt that they're around. Now, they might be in Idlib, for all I know, and that's probably a very strong possibility, given that that's where the concentration of the rebels are right now, including Nusra. So it's again, I think that given the political developments that have occurred, including Turkey and Mr. Putin allowing Erdogan to be involved in all this, I think he's going to make a much more concerted effort to control those elements than has heretofore been occurring. So I think that I'm hoping that they can be able to uncover more of these chemical weapons and maybe even direct where the stores are hidden in order to eliminate them because of the potential threat of them.
Another big story of the week saw the Obama administration slap Russia with new sanctions over its alleged influence on the US presidential election last year. The move was announced on Thursday. 35 Russian diplomats have been ordered to leave the United States along with their families. Many of them are on their way home now after they were given just 72 hours to pack and leave. Alleged harassment of US staff overseas was cited as a reason for the decision too. It is one of the largest expulsions of diplomats from the US. 2 holiday homes for Russian diplomats were also shut down, with some media outlets saying that they were actually spy houses. Well, the sanctions also targeted Russia's 2 main intelligence agencies too. 4 top military intelligence officials have been blacklisted by the US. 3 companies have also been singled out for supposedly supporting Russian cyber operations against the Democratic Party. However, in a surprise move, Vladimir Putin decided not to retaliate.
We reserve the right for tit-for-tat measures, but we won't stoop to kitchen diplomacy. We'll plan our next steps to restore Russian-US relations based on policy which the new administration of Donald Trump will pursue. We won't create hurdles for American diplomats. We won't expel anyone. We won't ban their families and children from using their usual places of rest during the holiday season. Moreover, I invite all the children of American diplomats in Russia to a New Year and Christmas party in the Kremlin.
US President-elect Donald Trump praised Putin for the decision not to retaliate, while also calling on the US to move on to bigger and better things. He said he will meet with intelligence chiefs next week. And talking to reporters on New Year's Eve, he also warned against accusing Russia of hacking without any serious proof. Former US diplomat Jim Tatras thinks that the Obama administration may be deliberately complicating relations with Moscow for the incoming president.
It seems to me, if you look at this in the big picture of the failure of the Obama administration and its relationship with Moscow, its failure in Syria that we now see U.S. being sidelined, I think Obama is trying to salvage what's left of his tattered legacy by saying, I'm going to slam the door as loud as I can and make things as difficult as I can for the guy succeeding me. What's the political goal in his doing so? I think it is to try to undermine the incoming Trump presidency and to box him in, to make it harder for him to warm relations with Moscow, to try to create as much damage and leave as much of a mess on the welcome mat at the White House as he can for Mr. Trump.
Well, the new sanctions were unveiled after the release of a joint report by the FBI and Homeland Security. It goes over the technical details of the alleged hacks, but doesn't explain how Russia is involved. The report actually contains a disclaimer too, saying that the document's information can't be confirmed and is for informational purposes only. We asked experts whether there is any evidence to back up the accusations.
Just covering their backs, aren't they? They know it's a bunch of rubbish. I mean, the fact that they're not actually standing by, they're not warranting the report they put out today, the Department of Homeland Security, rather points to the fact that it is pure propaganda, and they know it. There's a lot of information in there about, you know, the technological spec, that sort of thing. They're trying to blind people with science, but there's no real evidence.
There are so many qualifiers in this report. There's even a disclaimer at the beginning of the report saying, you know, this may or may not be true. They certainly didn't go no further in establishing how these two hacking groups, if they were indeed responsible for the hacks, how they were tied to the Russian government whatsoever.
It was a good outline of how phishing-type attacks or attacks occur, but it didn't say anything about who did what to the Democratic National Committee or when they did it, how much data they took out, where they sent the data, did they pass it to WikiLeaks, and so on. It did none of that. So it's just a way to alert system administrators to watch out for this type of attack. That doesn't prove anything.
Well, despite the lack of proof then, any substantial proof, reports of alleged Russian hacking have been circulating Western media outlets for months already.
We are also following new details on the Russians' motives for hacking and meddling in the U.S. presidential election.
Hacking and leaking that the administration says the Russians carried out.
The CIA has concluded Russian hackers intervened in the U.S. election.
The fact that they did not focus on this issue to the extent that we thought they would and they should is something that I think the press needs to do some introspection about.
Do you believe Vladimir Putin himself authorized the hack, and do you believe he authorized that to help Donald Trump?
I give the intelligence community the chance to gather all the information, but I'd make a larger point, which is not much happens in Russia without Vladimir Putin.
Do you feel any obligation now, as they've been insisting that this isn't the case, to show the proof, as it were? They say put your money where your mouth is and declassify some of the intelligence, some of the evidence that exists.
We will provide evidence that we can safely provide.
Does the DOD or NSA or any U.S. agency for that matter have any evidence that the Russians, either their agents, operatives, or government, that they hacked into the emails of the Democratic National Committee?
What proof does anyone have that they affected the outcome? Because I've heard zero. Okay? So show me what facts have actually shown that anything undermined that election.
So the CIA says that Russia did, in fact, attempt to sway the U.S. presidential election in favor of Donald Trump. What most media isn't doing is actually asking for evidence of these claims.
Some electors, mostly Democrats, are questioning Russia's role in the presidential election.
What I want is the information to be out there so that the American public and electors know who has been involved.
You're watching RT International. It's good to have your company today. More news from me in about half an hour's time. Up next, though, it is part 2 of one man's gruelling journey through the US justice system in Bloodsworth, an innocent man.